Hello, hello, and welcome to Season 3, Episode 22 of Fabrically Speaking Live. I'm your host, Clare Rowley, inventor of the Creative Feet line of sewing machine products and the Octi Hoops, which we're going to use in an unusual way today. It is May 26th of 2022. If you're watching this and it is not that date, you are not watching it live. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you don't miss out on any live episodes of the show. Hello, Sharon and Norma and Wendy and Carlene and Amy and Linda. Did I say Wendy? And Rian and Brenda. You're all early today. I have fabric already ready, already cut out. I'm ahead of schedule today. Look at that. I don't know how I did it. Just chasing around the... I'm a little embarrassed to say it. Maybe I shouldn't say it, but I didn't put the label on one of the packages. It's a big one. I'm sure usually the postal worker scans it, and there would not have been a label on it to scan. Thankfully, there is the label that says who was sending it out, so hopefully I'll get it back. Meanwhile, I did spend a good 45 minutes chasing after trying to find the mail guy, so you can't fault me for trying. And I stuck the label on my mailbox with a sorry, and hopefully he'll find his way back and stick it on there. If not, oh well, that's my first time doing that. A little distracted today. So the Octi Hoops are used for free motion quilting. Absolutely wonderful product for that, is it lets you draw on your quilt. But we also can use the Octi Hoops as a template for cutting out fabrics. We have 3 different size hoops, by the way, that come in the kit. Yes, you can be one of the sarcastic sisters. So sarcastic sisters. I still have to design that. Hi, Mary. You saw the Cheryl Borden show again? One of them. Okay, so we have three different sizes, the largest one being on my table right now. And each one of the Octi Hoops actually has an inside and an outside to it, which means that each one of these is a perfect little template for creating a applique of an octagon shape that you can either use for a version of foundation paper or English paper piecing, or for invisible applique or blanket stitch applique using a stabilizer. So you can see the inside perimeter of the hoop allowed me to cut out. This is the Applique stabilizer that we use for needle turn, patchwork, or invisible applique. And then the outer perimeter cuts the piece larger so that you have not only a perfect size, but it also helps you to position the fabric accurately within the inner perimeter of the hoop as well. And that makes it really nice for doing things like trying to get a pattern centered within the hoop. And I didn't iron this yet, but we have 2 pieces of fabric here. They both have that same design. However, I'm not sure I could line it up perfectly because it seems as though this is another section of this fabric. Boy, I wish I could have bought this by the yard. I would have bought a lot of it. Isn't that a neat design to have repeat? And what's really neat about it is with the Octi Hoops, we can trace around that design for quilting. So rather than trying to stack it, which you can do by finding an exact duplicate location on your fabric and pin through it, and then bring that pin down through and find the exact same spot on the next piece down and pin through it. And then you would, now this works when you have repeating designs, like, let me see another fabric I can bring out. This one's got batting in it. I must have had plans for this, and I never followed through with it. So if we wanted to stack this one and this one, since these are just a repeating pattern, then we could do that easier with this fabric than with the other by finding a location on the top that matches the other one, and you can stack it and pin in different locations, and then you could lay your hoop on top and cut a whole bunch of squares that are the exact same. It's also known as fussy cutting. So these hoops are a cutting template, a template that allows you to make little square baskets like you see here. It allows you to do free motion quilting, free motion embroidery, and now we can use it for creating squares or octagon shaped squares to piece together using a seam allowance or applique. And so today I thought I would show you the process of needle turning. First off, I want to make sure that I am centered again back on that fabric, that I have the wrong side facing up. This fabric's hard to tell the difference. One of my favorite fabrics I've ever purchased. Okay, so this is definitely wrong side facing up. And on this, the shiny side is the side that fuses to the wrong side. So first make sure that you are centered. And then shiny side down. To make sure it doesn't move once we lift this up, I'm going to go ahead and use some of the liquid base. Hi, Madeline. Sylvia is in Kissimmee, Florida. This is the liquid based, and we can just put a few drops on the actual stabilizer, just to maybe in each one of the octagon points, and just kind of spread it out. And that will prevent it from moving after I raise the hoop up. You also have the ability to kind of scoot it around till you get it just right. This is actually definitely enough to just do those spots. Notice I always slide my finger across it to kind of spread it out a little bit. What is on your sewing table, you guys? Share with me. And how hot is it? Or how cool is it in your area, depending on where you're watching from? You just came back from having laser surgery on your eye. Oh wow. So you're watching me like this? Are you winking at me? Okay, we'll set that aside while I get this one ready. And I just thought, how appropriate for someone who loves sunflowers to have some octagon shaped placemats, or maybe just a hot pad for taking something hot out so it doesn't cool too fast on my marble countertops. And I plan to back with this upholstery fabric. This is a very heavy upholstery fabric that feels like velvet. I think they still sell this. I bought this years ago. But you see how it has this nice kind of suede, like it looks like faux leather, but it's furry like velvet. So maybe I'll show you the finished, or how to finish that, should I have time. Definitely not today. We know better now, don't we? especially since I kind of feel like taking the label to the post office. Maybe it'll end up there. I'm going to play around with making a quilt this way because Kay Wood had this way of joining all her hexies together with just a 1/4 inch seam allowance. She didn't have to do an applique process to get an entire quilt sewn together this way. And I've always wanted to try it with the octagon shape to see if it would work. Mathematically, makes sense that it would. Have any of you ever done an octagon shape before and done any piecing with it? Not to be confused with the hexie, but actually the octagon. Know that we do have the Applique products on order, as we're sold out of several different items right now. One are the pencils that actually write on the shiny side of the stabilizer, eliminating the need for you to have to trace on some of your patchwork designs. There we go. Okay, so just a little drop on each point. And this is just to hold it in place so I can remove the hoop frame. This keeps it centered. Maybe I'll have a little time to do some free motion quilting as well. I kind of wanted to do that. Wendy called me earlier, right before I had to run out to try to chase after the postman. And I was telling her I didn't know what I was going to do today. It was really between just kind of goofing off and doing some free motion to settle myself. So the pen that I used to trace this is the friction pen. And it irons away. So when I iron these together, which I'm going to do now, they will erase. The lines will just vanish. Can you imagine how precise you could be with a design like this? I thought they were antlers. Oh, it's like the tree of life. Sometimes you just got to buy fabric and you don't know what you're going to do with it. How much fabric do you have that you wish you had more of? Guess. Put it in the chat. Poor Tinkerbell got on her chair and she was trying to make it really comfy for herself and she fell off the chair all the way down to the floor. So she's now on by my feet instead. Yeah. No Sharpie. And now the pink lines are just disappearing. And the coating that is on the stabilizer is now bonding to the fabric. And you can see the little dots where the liquid-based has dried and it's water soluble, so it's just going to disappear. And now we have this octagon shape. That I can applique onto something. And I was thinking I have the sunflower quilted placemat on one table and it has a black background. So I was thinking I may put these on a black background to kind of make it all tie in together. So now they're like little frisbees that I can toss around and I don't have to worry about the stabilizer moving. Isn't that lovely? Do you guys love that? Tinkerbell has had better days. For this technique, I'm going to go ahead and use the Applique products. And we eventually can sew them together. This is stitched by machine using my invisible applique process, using invisible thread and a very small zigzag stitch. So no hand sewing is required, and see how it lays flat? You actually sew it like this, go across, and then you open it up, and it lays perfectly flat, and you can't see the stitch. It's cheating, but it's super strong when you're finished as well. Where's my glue? There are different types of glues available. And the one that I like to use for doing this needle turn or turning process is the Applique glue, because it dries slower. So we have more time to manipulate the fabric, more time to smooth it out, so you end up with perfect straight edges when you're finished, or nicely curved edges. I'm getting out my Applique tools, which are buried inside of my Mary Poppins bag type drawer full of all kinds of goodies. Sorry for the noise. Okay. I should have a damp washcloth to wipe the tools off as I go around my project. And if I weren't chasing the mailman today, I would have had time to do that. Another item that Rosa from Applique recommends is a notepad, which I know is here somewhere. This is the pieces that I have left over from when I taught this as one of the episodes of Fabrically Speaking Live. So these octagon shapes ended up being that square. But I could use these maybe for today. We'll see. All right, so I'll just show you with 2 pieces of paper instead of a notebook, because I got paper. Where's Tina? I'm trying to remember each one of you and what's going on in your lives. I'm not sure. So these are the Applique tools, and on the end of one are what appears to be like 2 fingers that allow you to push down instead of using your fingers. And you can hold this in this manner, which is better for your hands, better for your fingers, so you'll feel better. Let me know if my mic gets too far. I don't know what you're saying is pretty. Is this what you were talking about, Brenda? This fabric? I love that fabric. All right, here we go. This glue is intended for use on only natural fabrics. So if you're going to work on a synthetic with the stabilizer using this process, so the links inside of, I had a feeling they were broken. I will update the links after the show is over. So we're going to go ahead, and she actually rubs it on the fabric, and this is larger than you actually need, clearly, for folding over. On this end, it has a spatula shape, kind of comes down at an angle, which allows you to scoop the fabric up. So you would hold it with one hand and scoop up with the other. You can get right next to the edge there and flip it up and then smooth it out. And this is how you progress around, rather than using your fingers and pinching and trying to smooth the fabric out. It feels better at the end of a day of doing this to use these tools than to use your fingers, for sure. I don't know. I can't keep up with your chat. So you could clip the corners, but if you ever get a chance to watch Rosa use her tools, oh my gosh, she barely ever clips. And when she brought out at dinner a handful of little circles that she had done that were only 1/4 inch in diameter, I looked at her and I was like, "You're crazy." And she goes, "I know." And I'm serious. 1/4 inch, complete, turned under 1/4 inch. See how perfect that point is? And I didn't have to clip. Yes, it does keep the glue off your fingers as well. So you're putting it on the fabric. It has moisture that keeps the fabric more pliable for a longer period of time. It dries clear as well. I am definitely not skilled at these like she is. I should do more, huh? If only I had more time to play. I'm a little awkward because I'm not using them in the correct hand. There we go. It's always weird when I'm filming live because I have the mic. I have to tip my head off to out of perspective, so I can't even see what I'm doing, so that you can hear what I'm saying. And come back. So you can leave your fine details for after you get your large stretches without worrying about the fabric getting dry. Pinch it together. I'm going to go ahead and I didn't put enough glue on there. Put a little bit right there. It does have a similar feel to holding on to chopsticks, but not nearly as challenging as chopsticks, although I'm pretty good at using them. Have any of you done any of the needle turn applique? Do you have the tools and have you tried them yet? You can order even though they're marked as sold out at creativefeet.com right now. And you'll find them under the tools link. So I know how helpful you are, Carlene, but I don't know if you can go to the tools link at creativefeet.com and copy and paste it in the chat. Maybe I can do that. So here we are at creativefeet.com, and at the top you go to products, you go to tools. This is also where you'll find the wooden pressers and the clip-it clips I use so much, the Caterpillar light tablet. So you can see these are her awesome tweezers that save your thumbs from hurting. The scissors, which are great for your hands for cutting out your little applique shapes. These are the tools right here, the Applique rods. So when you click on it, you'll see that they're sold out, but they will be soon. And this is my friend Rosa. She's an awesome person. So that's how she usually does it, with a notebook. And then the glue gets on that paper and then she moves. So the gluing is done over here. Then she moves the piece over here for the finer details so that you don't get any glue on the outside of the fabric. And if you go to products and stabilizers, and you go down, you'll see the Applique stabilizers located here. And we are almost sold out of this. Her stuff is really trending right now. So let's see her. Copy, and I'll stick the, come on, it's not gonna let me paste. I can't paste into my chat. How rude. I should be able to paste into the chat. I'm the running the show. I think I remember you guys couldn't either. It won't let me paste. I'll update the description beneath as soon as possible, you guys. And if you were watching, was it last week that I had the spider bite? I didn't want y'all to worry about me, but I just got bit by a spider. The spider that sat down beside her. I'm going to try something. If I bring the corners together and create a little pinch and do that first. That's not how she tells me to do it, so. But she also said that she does not cut her octagons into octagon shapes. She actually cuts them into circles. The light that you saw come on is the Caterpillar light tablet. I rest my arm on it and it turns on. Not always. Here we go. And underneath are the two main shapes of the quilt that I'm making for myself, so that I can just lay my quilt square over the top and see if it's the right shape or the right size, and then move on instead of having to pull out the ruler every time. One of my favorite things about this, being able to keep pieces underneath there. You're able to paste, Carleen? I don't see it. It wouldn't let me do it. Maybe you have to do it with a keyboard and not a mouse. Which my keyboard is safely in the trash can below me to keep me from getting into trouble with it. I am disciplined. I definitely was using my thumbs, and my thumbs were getting sore already. It's amazing. Another really neat thing about this two-prong fork, I think I'll turn this off or unplug that, is that you can pick it up and have one toe, and it allows you then to spin on that toe, and then you drop the toe, and then it locks it in place and won't move. So when you get the hang of this and you start using it more, and when I did work on a project that kept me using this for a while. I did get a lot quicker at it. What did I use this for recently? And I was like, another use for these. Do any of you remember? It was something unusual. I didn't iron this all the way, so I'm going to put that down. Okay, well, I don't see the paste inside of the chat. If you did paste, it's not showing up on what I use to view the chat. And sorry I didn't have more time to give you guys the links inside of the school. If you are inside the school and you are chatting right now and you're not seeing your chat or anyone respond to you, you may be in the school commenting, and that is not where I see the chat. So you have to actually be on my YouTube channel or inside of Facebook. One of the things I want to do is I want to use my binding technique on an octagon as well soon. But I do not, at this time, have plans to do that today. There's a bunch of batting fuzz on that. You could position it on the, what would that be? This would be on the vertical or the horizontal. I think I would like it like this, and over here I could free motion quilt some sunflowers. And maybe some bees like I did on the other one. I would show you what I'm talking about, but it's in my living room. I love it. What was I gonna do? Yeah, it just protects me from having somebody post a link to their website while I'm live. What's weird is that I can't also. Don't you think? I think so too, Linda. You know what I like about it is that the black is not going to show a lot of dirt, and the sunflower fabric is really busy. A lot of times if you quilt real elaborately on something, you don't want to put a plate there, so the plate will go where the sunflower fabric is, and then where all the quilting is, you can admire the quilting around the plate. There's so much batting on here. I'm going to use some tape and clean it up. The stabilizer I'm using is the Applique fusible stabilizer, found under the stabilizers link at creativefeet.com. And we are really close to running out, so you don't want to wait. People are being really, really greedy with it lately, ordering a lot of it at once. The last time the order we placed lasted us a few months. This time it's only been a couple weeks since we got it in, and we're almost sold out. Thankfully, there isn't a long wait. It's not like it's coming from China, it's coming from Spain. Don't I have any tape in here? Thought I had a tape gun in here. I'll just use some of my stick and tear scraps. So the stick and tear, when we use it, sometimes we have these little pointy things, and I can just tear that off and then peel it off, and it's an adhesive that holds really well onto the batting. And clean that up. Did you guys tell me how hot it is in your area today? I think we're up above 90 degrees today. We definitely hit 91 yesterday. I felt like I was 91 degrees when I was chasing after the postman. Yes, so this stabilizer is fusible on only one side. It is not a permanent fuse. It's a light hold, which allows you to form the fabric and leave it inside of your quilt. And it, once you like sit on the quilt, it stretches or whatever, the stabilizer gets really soft and pliable. It becomes undetectable in your quilt. Whereas people did a lot of freezer paper forming, and then you have to peel back, get the paper out of there, or they use regular paper and do that and use the glue, and then the glue's stuck all over the paper, and it's really hard to pull out all of those little hexagon shapes. So instead you can use hers. And if you have our die cutting machine, we have all the different hexie shapes, and you could cut your own hexies with her stabilizer, and you can cut all your fabrics, stack them up, cut stacks and stacks of her stabilizer so that you don't have to hand cut or rotary cut any of your hexies. And that is the Crafter's Edge machine. There we go. Sorry for that. And honestly, if I could have found a piece of black fabric that didn't have batting on it, I would have. Now, how do we get our fabric to stay positioned on top of the main body of the material? I do that using our liquid-based glue. I find it holds better than any other, and it doesn't add any bulk to the fabric. I want to make sure that I'm centered on this. So I'm going to fold this and use one of the pressers. You don't have to go all the way across on this. You can just do a little bit, press a little bit out on the ends. And then you can fold it again and go up. And now we know our center and center marks. When we open it up, that's the wrong side. The right side already has some more fuzz on there. I'll tell you, I was thinking I wouldn't like the black fabric for the other one, but it's really not showing up on that. I think once you quilt it, it becomes less likely to actually have the fuzz attached to it for some reason. I'm not really sure why that happens. So we can go like this to find the center between a 4.5 inch would be 2 1/4, and make sure that we're lined up on that line. And do the same thing over here. Did I do that right? I did. Okay. Yeah, Brenda, you got the hexies, didn't you? Am I remembering correctly? Ah. Sharon, you're like me. I love sunflowers. You should look through all the lives, my shows, so that you can see all the different sunflower things that I've done so far. So I am using this to hold it down, and this will, because it's just water-soluble stabilizer, will wash out whenever this is washed. But because it is a water-soluble stabilizer, when it's dry, it's actually kind of stabilizing this fabric as well as this fabric, and it reduces your puckering, or the fabric puckering. You can actually speed up the drying time by having a hot iron and pushing steam through. So rather than using a permanent fusible, you can see it's really held down there really nicely all the way around. Now I do this half. Frequently I'll do little dots about 1.5 inches apart and then slide my finger across to join those dots together. But you can also draw a line with the glue and then lay it down. Should you get any of it on the outside area, it's just a wet washcloth removes it. So I'm going to set this aside and I'm going to try something. I really don't want to use this because I'm all ready to make myself another cubby with it. I'm also thinking that this shape may be good for a bowl cozy. Instead of having the square, that we could have a rounded top instead of that squared top on top of a bowl cozy. So I know that is, in my mind, something that I'm trying to work on. Just so that it doesn't take as long, I'm going to try cutting a few with the smallest of the 3 Octi Hoops. Ooh. I do love playing with this type of stuff. It would work well on one of these little trailers. Look at that. And we have 2 trailers to play with. We'll give it a try. This is one of Lorelei's Designs fabric. I'm trying to think of what she calls this particular fabric. Happy Camper, I think. I was thinking about saving some of this for my sister Therese, who loves to go camping with. She belongs to a group called Sisters on the Fly, and they go camping. They pull trailers and go find places to camp. Now, one of the issues when sewing a octagon shape or a hexagon shape, when you're trying to just piece it, is you have all these different angles that you have to maintain your 1/4 inch seam allowance on, but the Satinedge Foot makes that so easy. Definitely not the same size, or are they? Looks like they are. So I just have to iron this. I don't know what I said that made you say that, Amy. It's like 30 seconds ago. Has some double-sided tape sitting there. I have probably been carrying this fabric around for, well, probably the year she created this design. It's rather thin, so definitely some spray starch to give it more body. Because when we sew an octagon shape, we actually have several times when we're going across the bias when we go to sew them together. Part of my problem with my rotary cutters is that I push really hard against them. And I really dig deep channels into my mat. A little too rough on it. After I'm done, I will look for this link for her Happy Camper fabric. Perfect time of year to get it, huh? Can you imagine giving this to, I think my sister would absolutely love it. If I did a hot pad with that. Okay, so remember, this is the outer perimeter of it. And I'm not going to be using a stabilizer this time. This time I'm going to piece it. So I can try to position this so that I can capture most of it. This is a 3/4 inch size here. So if we can see the outer edge of certain elements that we want to make sure we get, it doesn't matter too much if I cut off part of the sun or this, but it would matter if it doesn't have its tail light. So that's kind of what I'm looking at as I do this. And also, we don't want to have like all of a sudden a big chunk of the black color. It's always hard for me to use these up. I love them so much. So now we can use the Octi Hoop like a ruler. There were more fabric than I needed, Amy, so you could have cut it down a little bit, but it's fine. It just isn't a 1/4 inch. It's 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch. And all that does is make that less likely to have any fraying ever, because there's more fabric folded under there. I should pull out my spinning rack so that I don't have to keep adjusting that. It's like a sauna in here. We have humidity. I wonder if it's gonna rain soon. I haven't seen any sign of rain coming to us in Arizona. This is not that difficult. But it is important that you cut accurately on this, because you're going to sew it as a piece instead of an applique. I know where the bottom part of my spinning mat is. I just don't know where the top is. And I'm still a little bit challenged with my thumb right now. So it looks like I'm just going to get by. But I could also not use a 1/4 inch. I could go smaller. Should have evaluated this one more, but it's all right. It's still cute. And I'm trying to remember what K Wood did, but you can take and sew them together as well. And keep building with any design that you want. An octagon shape, and Kay has a method. Sorry, she did pass, so she's no longer with us, but she did spend a night teaching me. That woman barely slept. She had over 500 quilt tops and had me have a slumber party after a day of working a show down in Phoenix. And so one of the things she showed me was how she handles her hexes and how she can make an entire quilt with hexes using a seam allowance and not having to do the Y seam. So I will do that when I'm ready to show that. It's just kind of showing you what you can do for this type of work. So we can join them together like you see here. Create a placemat, and I'm going to go ahead and do the needle turn applique, and I'm going to quilt a little bit of this if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask the questions right now. Did I retract my blade? No. Thank you for catching me on that. This thumb is really sore. I did a number on it again. If only she'd rest, but I don't do that very well. I'm working on something in my garden area. Putting rocks and sand in between the grout lines between all the flagstone. The flagstone has inch gaps and it hurts Chase's paws. And I have a jacuzzi and I throw the ball, we call it jacuzzi ball. And he goes running and it hurts his pads when he hits the edges of that. So I'm filling it all in and I'm going to put some resin in there to hold the sand and the rocks together inside of the flagstone gaps. I'll let you know how it turns out. Maybe take a couple pictures for you. Okay. I don't know what you said, Amy, that you're saying never mind. Okay. Generally, when you do the needle turn applique, you're trying to make it appear as if you sewed your piece inside of a hole of the same shape. So if you're going to do a heart shape piece of fabric and applique it on, you could go behind the quilt after you applique it and cut the fabric a 1/4 inch away from the stitching line, and then it looks like you've sewn it with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You can do the same thing with this. I could go in afterward, once I have the stitching line on there, and go in and cut away the back fabric. That would take away an entire layer of fabric, making it the same thickness as the rest of the quilt. And that you can also leave and then cut a little slip from behind and stuff it with a batting or a polyfill to make it a true trapunto puffy, which would be really fun. And I'm thinking about doing a quilt with some fish and having you stuff the fish and doing some seaweed and stuff and having it be a dimensional quilt. Got lots of plans, you guys. Now I just need to somehow figure out how to get more hours in the day. I'm going to put my tools away. Although I do want to finish both of them. Better to put those in a safe place because one of them is very sharp. So now you can choose to use a colored thread or you can use invisible thread. Do you want the stitch to show on the top of this or do you want it to disappear? Do you want it to appear as if you took a needle, a hand sewing needle, and turned the fabric under and did a stitch? And that is my technique. If you have my workbook, the invisible applique technique inside the book. And here's the book. So we would go to the table of contents. This book has seen better days. It's been handled a lot. That's what I look like when I published the book. Oh, so look at my cheeks are chubby. I was so young. All right, so in the Satinedge Foot, we would look for the table of contents, and it's done by straight stitch technique and zigzag technique. And tape got in there and tore that off. So here we are on to invisible applique on garments, invisible applique on quilts. So the nice thing about this is you can use it on garments and never have to worry about your fabric tearing away. So then you would just go to the page, which is 131. And this is a book that I designed to help you build confidence as you work through learning all the different techniques that the creative feet can do. And you make notes inside of your book. And once you've sewn something, then you know how to sew it. And next time you got to do something, you're like, oh yeah, I've done that before. I'm not scared. I'll go back to my notes. And you have the ability to write different sewing machine models settings down as well. If you use pencil, you can erase it when you get a new machine and change it back or write down the technique for the new machine. So it's broken down by all of the creative feet. I almost did this technique today, which is corded pin tuck. I have an idea for this. I'm going to show you something. probably shouldn't even show you. You see this is corded pin tucking, and using this technique we can actually do curves. So I was thinking about creating a track for, and this would be perfect for a little, what are they called? Those little cars that little kids play with, and or bigger, and having it be a marble pathway. So for activity quilts for children. So back to finding my way to this. There it is. This is the invisible applique on garments technique, and you can't see any stitch at all on the top when you're finished. The difference is for the quilting is that afterward you cut away the back. So you can see how the book is broken down. And it looks like the exact same sample, except for on this one, there's a 1/4 inch seam allowance going along the inside. And this is just a trick to make you think that a heart-shaped piece of fabric was sewn into a hole that was 1/4 inch in diameter. It's just a trick. So the settings on the machine are listed right here. You always want to start at the top of the settings and work your way down so that you don't cancel something out if you have a computerized machine. So the pressure foot pressure on the lightest setting, and I'm going to set up my machine as I do that. Pressure foot pressure is at 1 on my machine, normal at 4. Needle thread tension 1 to 2 numbers less than normal. And this is important when you're using invisible thread, because invisible thread is nylon and it stretches, so it increases tension just by you using it. You could, however, use also the Invisifill line of thread. Invisifill is just really thin thread. And if you use a color that is slightly darker than the lightest color, it will drop into the nap of the fabric. So you don't want to go lighter because it will show more. This is the smoke version of the invisible thread, and it doesn't show up at all on this. Or if I did use the clear, it would reflect the light and I would see it. So I'm going to go ahead and use the smoke for the needle. Reducing my thread tension as instructed. And on my machine, my tension is normal at 4.0, so I'm going to take it to 3.0. When I give you a range and I say between 1 and 2 numbers, you always try the 1 number lower first, and then if you have any issues, then you would take it down only if you have an issue. And then the stitch pattern is your regular old zigzag stitch, so everyone can do this. And then the width of the stitch is between 0.5 millimeter, and that is 1/2 of a millimeter. Super, super narrow zigzag. So the stitch is barely going to grab hold of that fabric, and the other string of the needle is going to go in the ditch, and that's what makes it invisible. It's kind of like a whip stitch by machine. Stitch length, 1.5 millimeter stitch length is adequate. You don't need to go really short because this is, it's not going to be opened up. You're not trying to cover the edge of the fabric. You're literally trying to make it appear as if you hand sewed a stitch. So 1.5 millimeter stitch length is really fine and quick. You could go a little shorter if you want, but it is not necessary. Yeah, the book really helps because once you've done it, then you know you can do it again. And then you can utilize any pattern that you find. And when they call for a technique, you can refer to my instructions instead. Now, in the instructions, I do talk about using a sharp needle for this. And that's fine if you're not going to wash or sit on the item that you're sewing. Since I'm going to be washing this a lot, I'm going to use a universal needle instead. And I'm going to use a 70-10 universal needle. It's super small. I think that's the smallest I've used on the show so far. However, they are even smaller needles than that. They go all the way down to 8 on the size. I happen to have the super universal needle in the 7010 handy, so I'm going to use that one. In the super universal, well, it's got the sports car shape to the front of the needle. I have to cough. Hold on one second. Sorry guys, I talked too long without drinking any water. Hot Wheels, that's the name of the car, Amy. Tina still hasn't shown up, you guys. Now, when you work with a 7010 needle, do not use your needle threader. It is not designed to go through that tiny eye with the thread, and you're likely to bend your needle threader. I know it's when you really need the needle threader that using it may be a lifelong frustration because you bent your needle threader. This is, got to get these added on our site. We do have these in stock, and this is smaller. Does allow me to take it through from the back of the needle, which I need my glasses to do that. This needle will handle the edge of that fabric folded under, even though it's only a 7010. Sorry, you guys, I have to concentrate. Trying to remember which way the loop. There we go. So this does allow us to go all the way down to the 8 needle. This is also a little hole for putting the needle into the machine should your hands and your dexterity of holding the needle while screwing that in is challenged. You can put it in like this. This is also great for sergers as well. If you have a serger and wish you had a needle threader on it. Sorry guys, had a little coughing fit again. I just threaded the machine though with the wrong thread. So I'm gonna take it out and put it in. One of the things I plan on doing is recreating each one of Kay's videos that I filmed when we had the slumber party. She wore me out, and I was so blown away by her techniques that I was a little too chatty, which she loved to tease me about. Another reason you want to hesitate to use your needle threader with nylon thread is that it's so strong that it can actually bend that little pushy thing that pushes your thread through. So while it seems like a negative, it's really saying something. It's complimenting the thread. It's saying that thread is so strong, it's stronger than the metal on that needle threader. My tape thing broke free. In the bobbin, you can use any thread at this point that matches. So I have black thread in the bobbin. Right now I do have a nylon lingerie thread in the bobbin because I was mending some athletic wear. So it's in the machine and it's fine. It's not going to be a problem. There we go. So I have the machine set. And I'm going to go ahead and I frequently would tell you it's fine to do a 1 millimeter width. You don't have to go all the way down to 0.5 millimeter. But if you're going to do a applique on a garment and you're working with chiffons or chenille, really, really sheer fabric, you're going to want to go down as small of a width as you possibly can. And this foot will make it possible for you to do that. What we're trying to do is we're trying to get one stitch to go on the folded fabric and one stitch to fall off. You don't want both stitches riding on top of the applique like you do with flat raw edge applique when we do a satin stitch. We want one stitch to fall off the edge, and because the width is so tiny, it looks like you just sewed it into a hole. It's fantastic. And the reason I called it invisible applique is because the stitch is invisible. So right now I have a 1 millimeter wide width, and we'll see if that works. Bring the needle down into the right swing of the zigzag stitch. Now we don't know if we're in the right swing until we actually, let me see if I can do this. I'll use this fabric so you can see. So when we bring the needle down, we don't know if it's left or right until we do one full stitch rotation. So we turn the hand wheel towards you till the needle swings in the next direction. So now it's swinging, now it jumped to the left. So now it's in the left, and we come back again and we bring it down so that the eye of the needle drops into the fabric. Not any further than that. Then turn the knot on the foot, moving the guide wire over to the right side of the needle. And as I do that, I kind of lift the foot, in case the wire is grabbing on the feed dogs beneath the fabric. And then I turn the hand wheel again to make sure that I didn't bend the needle, that the needle isn't being deflected as it comes down. The widest part of the needle is what we gauge that on, and the point of the needle is halfway in between the tip of the needle. Then you can take this right out and pull that needle thread, and all of the stitches that you sewed on that fabric will just come right out. So there's no need to not fully lower that sewing machine needle. And now always have your thread to the left hand side underneath this toe and to the left, because the bottom of the Satinedge foot has a deep groove going down it, and the thread would have nowhere to be held onto by the foot. So all of the creative feet, you want to bring your thread underneath the foot and to the left hand side. This is the same foot style. So these are the same foot, but not the same foot because they're 2 feet in my hand. And then that little wire inside there is what I moved. Whoops. So when we turn the nut, we're changing the location of that silver guide pin, which is a piano wire. And if you look real close, you can see there is a nick on it, or a scar, I like to call it, from my sewing machine needle, because I did hit my guide pin on that foot once. You can strike it over and over again. All you'll do is break your needles. Don't start on the corner. Oh, I could see the guide wire deflecting that time, so I'm a little too close. This is when you double check before you start going for it. And I can hear the needle rubbing against the guide wire, and in the beginning that used to make me nervous. Not anymore. And this is my posture. Elbows are down. Instead of this, my elbows are down, resting on the machine, and I'm guiding if needed by raising it up, and always just trying to make sure there's no gap between the white part of the guide and the fabric. So we're always trying to keep the fabric up against the white part of the guide. And the shape of this guide comes down at an angle, and the guide pin is centered in that guide. So you don't have to be able to see well in order to do this. Just light guiding of the fabric. And as I'm doing this, I'm thinking I probably could have used the clear, but then you wouldn't be able to see it at all. And I can lower my needle if I want, because we don't swing over the guide pin. So the needle down in either the left or the right doesn't matter, because the width of the stitch is so small. Elbows down, shoulders relaxed. What have I done? I got too much in front of me. One swing on, one swing off, one swing on, one swing off. Similar to satin stitch applique, but the stitch length is long. We could even go longer. You could go all the way to a 3 if you want. 3 millimeters in between each stitch is what you'd end up with. As soon as I have time, I'm going to paint this sewing machine. I'm not enjoying this machine at all, by the way. It's too big. My arm is only so long. I'm trying to like it. I keep meaning to put the machines in my car and take them to the dealer, but I have not had a chance to do that yet. I don't want it to sit there for 3 months. Like, if you can't do it in the next month, then I'd rather just have my name on a card instead of the machine sitting there. So I just have to negotiate with him. He'll probably work with me. I don't think he'll want one of my hand-painted machines laying around that long either. So if I were to plan this and try harder, I would actually bring my needle down so that it is in the right swing. That's pretty much the position that I generally always do. Bring it down into the outside swing. And then zoom, zoom. So how far would you be if you were hand sewing this? And how would your hands be feeling right about now? If you have a sewing machine with needle down, you have the option to have it always stop down. I do not like to have my needle stop down. I find I have more frustration doing that than not. More likely to have your thread fall off your take-up lever doing that. I don't know why sometimes I do that little short vroom, 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 vroom. Elbows down, shoulders relax. Believe in yourself. The only thing that stops you from succeeding at something is the fear of not succeeding. And you just cheat yourself out of the opportunity of the joy of success and the confidence build that you'll have. That's why I wrote the book the way I did. It is a confidence builder. You're not committed to making anything, just a little square so that you can see that you are capable of doing this. If all you ever had before was a sewing machine with a regular foot, it is something else to see all the things I can do with our creative feet. And you might think you have to learn each one, but you don't have to learn these techniques. You use the recipe in the book. And then there's the video that supports the book. Needle down in the outside swing, lift and turn. And I'm almost done with this part, which means I can go ahead and put some batting and start to free motion quilt for you. And we are not even close to 4 o'clock. I'm on a roll today. Now I'm going to tie a knot. You can bring the needle thread and the bobbin thread to the back side and tie it off that way. Isn't that fun? Now, if you get really close on this, you may see the stitching on there, and you most likely are seeing the hole created by the needle, which will soften up as this fabric softens up, because this has the Applique stabilizer in there right now. But as it gets manipulated a little bit, the stabilizer, the bond that we created by ironing it, softens up, and then you will end up with nothing. Let's see if I can get it to go soft without ruining it. Don't ruin it, Claire. You haven't sewn it yet. So do you see how tiny that is? I'm going to take photos of this and I'll put it in the school so that you guys can see just how hard it is to see the stitch. So that needle turn applique. Now if I really wanted this to be a really good hot pad, I could have backed that with a batting just as I have here, so that this octagon shape itself will stick up higher than the rest of the placemat. And wouldn't that have been fun? Time is fleeting, you guys. How many different things can I say that are corny today? The only thing we'll regret when it's time for us to leave are the things we didn't do. The time definitely has stopped me from finishing some projects. I just keep trudging along like riding that horse across the valley. There's another silly analogy. I'm going to grab some batting. Tinkerbell's back on her chair. She had that, falling off the horse thing, but she got back on her horse and she's back on her chair. Sounded like she jumped down, but she didn't. Want a bigger piece of batting. Time to clear some space. Are you guys having fun? Do any of you have any questions? Ask, ask, ask. A lot of people wish that they bought the Creative Feet first. Once upon a time, there were barely any feet for sewing machines. Then I created the Creative Feet, and there were still not that many feet. Sewing machine companies were buying directly from me. And then I wrote my book, and they were frustrated that I didn't make 27 different feet when I came up with 27 uses for the Satinedge foot. So then they started to make feet for the different techniques that I created. So when I say that I invented the Creative Feet, I also invented a line of actual different processes. And this is because we were located in Los Angeles, and this was back when we used to make most of the garments in the United States. A long time ago. Leaving the batting a little bit bigger, then you're not going to go off the edge. I'm so excited to do some free motion. Know that I have not forgotten that I have not sewn the cup holder thingy. I should do that next week. By the way, next Tuesday is the VIP live it's 4 o'clock my time. And I'm not going to have it be like a specific time and a specific day. We're going to move it around. That way all of you guys get an opportunity to be live in the Zoom no matter what country you're in. So 4 o'clock this coming Tuesday, if I'm correct, I think. Just go into the VIP group and RSVP for the Zoom, and then you'll know. So when we do free motion quilting with the Octi Hoops, you can have your backing fabric be on the back, or you can quilt it and then put the backing on later. And just, it doesn't really matter because it's going to be a placemat. If the stitch goes all the way through, and I really want to use this heavy upholstery fabric so that it will be real nice and add more temperature control to the furniture. And I think this is going to be what I use when I sit at the TV and eat. I have this table that comes up and the surface is very nice, and I want to keep it that way. So we're going to use 2 hoops. When you get the Octi Hoops, you do receive 3 different frames, 3 different sizes. If you're new to my site, this is the same size right here as this one. And this is stabilizer on the back side. And I've been embroidering over a fabric that already had a design. This is something that I could play around with. I could do a little bit after I quilt if you guys like, just to show. But when we do quilting, we don't want to see any stabilizer on the back side. So I'm going to, instead of using a stabilizer on the back, I'm going to use 2 frames at the same time. It's up to you which one goes on top and which one goes on bottom. And the quilt is going to be over the bottom frame. And the smaller frame goes on top. And then you bring the corner of one frame, or of the top frame, into the corner of the smaller frame. And the quilt is now captured and stuck in there. By the way, this is an embroidery that I did recently on Fabrically Speaking Live. It's a 2-part series. The second part was a Zoom. First part was in the Fabrically Speaking Live. So if you didn't catch the second part of this, it's inside of the school in the Octi Hoop group, or in the Fabrically Speaking Live group. I can't remember. Just search for the embroidery and you will find it in the school. Now for the top hoop, since we have our choice of 2 frames on the top and 1 on the bottom, either this one on the bottom or this one on the bottom, we determine which one is the best size for your hand based on the size of your hand and how it fits within the frame. If your hand is significantly smaller than the frame, this one should not be used on top. And that is because we're going to move our fingers to move the hoop. Using this little handle, and that handle drops into the frame. We're actually resting our hands on this frame, which you won't be able to see this frame because it's going to be underneath this fabric. Bring the corners together, rest your hand, rest your elbows, and then you start to draw. It means we can fill in this whole area with just moving our fingers because we haven't chosen a hoop that's too much bigger than the size of our hand. This is my Mother's Day card from my daughter. I was like, I liked the artwork on it and thought, maybe I'll do some kind of a design like that for fabric. Wouldn't that be fun? All right, so these are the 2 that I'm going to use, and then I'm going to set this one aside. I'm not going to have a back fabric because I'm going to use a different fabric altogether before I bind it. One of the nice things about the Octi Hoops is it eliminates the need for a foot. I know it sounds funny. The foot lady saying we're wanting to eliminate the foot. but it is ideal. I'll remove the snap-on adapter that comes with the machine. This is May 26th of 2022. If you're watching and it is not that date, you are watching on the replay. If you want to make sure you are live with us to participate in the live chat, make sure that you join or subscribe to my YouTube channel. Now I could go ahead and stick with this invisible thread, but I want to make it show up. I want to really see the stitching on the fabric. So I'm going to use yellow to complement the yellow sunflowers. And because I only have one layer of fabric and the batting, a 70-10 needle should be fine. If I go into this, that's where I will have 2 more layers added into that. And then I'm at risk of breaking that needle. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that needle on. And because I have such a thin thread to complement that needle, the 100 weight. Hi, Sheila. I'm glad you guys are learning. Because honestly, I didn't know what I was going to do till 2 hours before I went live. I just knew I wanted to play with the Octi Hoops because it uplifts me. It's if I'm feeling a little down, the Octi Hoops take me out of my reality and into this wonderful place of coloring and drawing, and I just feel so much better when I do it. And if you don't think that you will ever feel that way about free motion quilting, know that I didn't think I would ever. And I've been doing free motion embroidery I was 16 when I started doing it. I'm 59. So I never thought I'd ever like free motion quilting because it was so hard on your hands to push down and move around, and it's so hard to draw a shape accurately with both hands down and your elbows lifted. So the Octi Hoops, well, they totally take it, totally. They completely change the process of holding your hands down. This frame goes beneath, this frame goes on top. You can't see the frame beneath. And if you move this frame, nothing happens. The only way they move together is by engaging or bringing one corner of the frame beneath to the corner of the frame on top with your non-dominant hands. I always have a little pad for my elbow to keep my elbow from becoming injured on the surface of my table, because with the Octi Hoops, you actually get to rest your body. Elbows down, shoulders relaxed. Just kind of think I'm resting. Oh, I'm ready for a nap now. Elbows down, shoulders relaxed, and then you can just write. But first, I have to choose some thread. I don't have that out. Ah. Oh no, I just knocked my cell phone down. I was like, what am I hearing? I usually use 40 weight thread so you guys can see better. So, but I really want to use a 70-10 needle. So I am going to grab the only yellow I have out here right now. So I have these to play with. I think they'll go nicely. And I'll play around with this one. No? Which one should I do first? I don't know. Feathers are for the birds. I was going to do some bumblebees. Maybe not bumblebees, just regular bees. Honeybees. Because that's what I did on the other one. Honeybees and sunflowers. I do have some really cool feathers that I designed. Ah! I just tried to use the needle threader on a 7010 needle. Terrible. There should be a little thing that goes, are you sure you want to thread your needle right now? What needle size do you have in? So that you don't bend it. So you can, I don't know if you can see just how small that little curly thing is. Live is so much harder than filming pre-recorded. Cameras are at a higher quality when we're not live. Come on, eyeballs. There it is. And if I need to memorize which way the hook goes. So the hook comes from the top. So I'm going like this, getting the thread between there to bring it down. And that's because I'm right-handed. This is one time left-handed people have a better time with it, because if you're left-handed and you bring it in, the hook's going from below and it's easier to grab the thread. I know it's like one time that you guys benefit from being left-handed. My daughter's a lefty, so she's spent a lot of her life complaining about that. Sorry about my reach. Before you begin, rehearse. There are different gadgets that sound really good until you use them. And then you go, darn it, that did not work the way I thought it would. One of them is the chalk templates. Can't just find a regular marker in here. Hi, Tinkerbell. Ah, there's that presser. I've been looking for it. I have too many pressers on my table right now, so definitely. My cubby is overflowing with gadgets. I think that's too many pressers for one person to have. That's the Bejeweled. This is the Green Hornet. This is the Red Velvet. And this is the Tequila Sunrise. I need a spot just for all of my pressers. Hi, Tinkerbell. Okay. So, if you use a chalk, where's that? There we go. This chalk, this one rocks. I was also dreaming about something this morning. Do you guys start your day dreaming of designs? Can you see that? I know it's yellow. So you could draw out using a ruler and be precise. Using one of these chalk liners to create straight lines to guide you. And it seems like such a great idea until you find out that it wipes away. So that doesn't work. Not as good as I thought it would be. Boy, I sure do love this chalk liner. Just not for quilting. And there's these pouncers. It's a template with openings, and you sprinkle chalk on there and you pound on it, and it leaves you this beautiful quilt design. But the line that it draws is that big. And your needle oh my goodness, Claire. The tip of your needle is really fine, right? It comes down to a really fine point, kind of like that. And the point of your needle is smaller than the width of the line that it draws. So as you're quilting, you're not going to know where on the line to put your needle and it makes you not sew straight lines. So the ideal line size to draw is the size of a tip of a sewing machine needle. If you're going to draw lines. What I like to do before I quilt is to draw one of the shapes I'm going to do before I begin. Not only is it helpful to draw, but it's helpful to draw because with the Octi Hoops you get to lay your hand down. Sorry, my drawer just keeps opening and closing. There we go. When you draw, you put your hand down, don't you? And if you don't know, you do. Pretend to write your name on a check. And you won't have your hand in the air. You'll put your hand down to write your name. So I'm going to do a sunflower design, and you can do so by starting with a circle. But you don't want to pick up your pen because you can't pick up your needle and start in a new place without tying a knot. So it's about practicing how to start a design and finish it without having to bring the needle or stop with the needle up and tie a knot. Yellow doesn't come out of things. I've heard that. So I'm going to do a circle, another circle, circle, and I'm going around the circles twice. Once, twice, once, twice. And that way you don't have any idea where your start and stop line is. Next line comes between where the V is, where those circles come together. So always setting your next circle into the V where the two circles join together. And I'm not as good at drawing on paper as I am on drawing on a quilt. I'm going to do this really quick because I don't want to take too long. So we go around and then we go around and we keep, however big you want your center of your flower to be is how many circles you'll draw. Then you come out and do your small petal. And after you do your small petal, well, that can be just one sunflower for you, but you could also go, okay, now I'm going to come up and grab 2 petals with each petal. Grab 2 petals, grab 2 petals. And when you grab the second petal, you're always trying to bring your point up from the center of where those two come together. So you come up and you go, okay, now I'm lined up, and then drop down and up and drop down. And that is how you can keep some symmetry without drawing it first on the fabric. Elbows down. It's a signal for me to put this down under my elbow. Elbows down, shoulders relaxed. And I'm going to have half of the sunflower's center be in or behind that octagon. So this is the center or thereabouts. Lower the foot, even though there is no foot currently on the machine. Let me see if I can brighten this area up for you. Well, nope. Elbows down, shoulders relaxed. Oop, straight stitch. I had everything set for whatever I was doing before. Bring up the bobbin, which, just because I already had it in there, is a black lingerie, which is not a bad thread at all. It's a great thread for your bobbin. In fact, it was called Sew Bob for years. And I'm like, oh, why am I seeing color? I have black. Because I want to see color. I put yellow thread on. However big you want your stitch to be, you need to decide that and tell your brain that. You can't see it, can you? I'm going to try zooming in this camera. I'm going to switch needles and grab a thicker thread. So I don't think I can get the camera to see that. Black fabric is really hard on the camera. So I hope you're following along and understand what's taking place. if you want to use a really thin or small needle, you need to use a thread that can fit in the forward-facing groove going down the front of that needle. Why I had such a small needle on was because I wanted a really small hole on the invisible applique that I did on the Octagon. But now I'm doing something I want to show. And so a thicker thread is more, well, it's going to show up more. But this needle is too small for a 40 weight thread. All right, so I'm going to go with a 40 weight polyester, the Polyfast threads, which I have a lot of color options in my sewing area. There are 60 colors, however, of the Invisifill, which is what I was using. So fine that your new quilter stitches will not show up as much. So it's better to use a thread that's thinner when you're learning, or even go as far as to use invisible, so that really nosy people would have to find your stitch. They'd have to really get out their glasses and go, oh, there's your stitch. How dare anyone examine your work that closely? So I'm going to pick a couple threads that I can see and switch to a larger needle. I can go to an 80-12 and get away with it. But I'm leaning toward a 90-14 because I'm not going to go further than I should. We got 15 minutes left until the show is over. I'm going to use the 90-14 top stitch needle because it's handy. We'll see if I have any skip stitches. I don't think I will. Yeah, I wanted to like the pounce. I use the pounce templates I have with the friction pen instead of the pouncer. I just drew within those lines. And but yeah, I was lost as to exactly where my needle should go on that line, and that took me a little while. I was like, why am I having such a hard time maintaining the design? And then I realized it's because I could put my needle anywhere along that line width, and that messes it up, makes it harder, more difficult. Grabbing some thread. If I remember correctly, I used these colors on my placemat in the other room. And I used this color for the centers. I really do want to like this when I'm finished, so I'm going to go ahead and use this for the center. What you guys cooking tonight? Any of you making dinner right now? So if I were to use chalk as I move across the fabric with this, I would be wiping it off as well. You're not going to be able to see this that well, but I'm going to just quickly lay down a center. I didn't mean to do that. I'm still learning this machine. Hi, Lily. You got to roast in the Instant Pot. I got to roast. That sounds like a good idea. Okay, so I already brought up the bobbin thread. I don't need to bring it up again. And I am going to go ahead and come back around where I already was on that with that yellow thread. It's not going to show up that much. Circle And I'm telling myself that I want this row of circles to be the same size. So my brain kind of kicks in for this. And I know you can't really see right now. Just know that I'm making something that matters to me. Oh, I like this. And if you want to see the design in its entirety when it's all said and done, it will be inside of the school. And the link is at the top of the chat. Create with Clare Rowley is my school, and it's at create.clarerowley.com. And my name is ClareRowley. There's no I in my first name, for those of you who don't know that. If you've ever written my name wrong, do not worry. I do not get offended. Well, I really kind of like that look. Okay, I'm going to go around now, and I'm going to do another group of circles. And this group of circles is going to be smaller than the other group or row. Circle, I can barely see it. This is just too dark. Do I have better light? Let's see. Where's the light? By the way, I am skipping stitches, which is, I should have gone with the super non-stick needle or the super universal. It wouldn't be skipping at all. Is that going through the right way? See, the needle threads wrapped around this always, no matter how many years I've been in the sewing industry, I still am dumbfounded as to how the needle thread ends up coming from behind the needle. So this happens to all of us, but it would not happen if I used a better needle. Top stitch needle is not the best needle for quilting. I usually have my needles out. That's right. I got this idea for use for the double needle that I got to do soon before I forget. So many needles. By the way, when you get needles from us, they don't have the cardboard things. We get a better price by not doing that and pass the savings on to you. Quilter's needle. The quilting needle is also good, but the best needle is that super universal. Where is it? I don't remember putting it away. Too many needles. There. I was looking in the wrong cubby. So the front of the super universal needle, it has this real nice drop down. It's kind of like most needles have a cliff for a waterfall for the thread to drop down, and this one, it has like a meandering stream, and it brings the thread down so that it has less resistance as it goes from the front of the needle to the back of the needle where the hook picks the thread up. And so you will get less skip stitches, less shredding of the thread above the eye of the needle with this needle. And it is large enough to use your needle threader with, which is awesome. This is an old checkbook box, and it's perfect for needle height, and it fits in my drawer. A super universal needle can eliminate needing more needles because it's more expensive, but it just performs so well on so many things. So I'm going to finish that row, and then I'm going to switch to yellow thread, and you'll be able to see what I'm doing. Sorry the light isn't good enough. Let me see. Oh, that's what I was doing. Where's the light? This machine is so big. I wish the light switch was outside of the editing screen. Let's see. Can you see better? Sometimes light makes it worse. Sometimes it makes it better. Ooh, you can see now. Kind of. This is a really cool color. I love it. It is Polyfast 4375. And I don't know the name of this color, but it is like a brownish, purplish color. And it's great for the center of a sunflower. I like to make a reason to use it. That's how much I like it. Not your average brown. Okay, elbows down, shoulders relaxed. Lower the foot, or you have no tension on your thread. I shouldn't have needed to bring my bobbin thread up. Oh, that's right, I used the scissors. I forgot. Where's my scissors? Right here. These are the Applique. These are the ones for cutting your threads, and they are also serrated. And it's got this awesome, I'm going to bring it up to the mic so you can hear. That's really tight and very precise, very, very precise in there. So you don't have any trouble. If you've ever tried to cut your thread and it kind of tore it instead of cutting it, you won't have that problem with the Applique scissors. Elbows down, shoulders relaxed. And I'm going around with a smaller circle. I started out with the really big, large circle in the middle, half of it, half of the circle, so that I would end up with a circular shape. And round and round and round we go. Going around and around again. Why do I go around my circles twice? Because then you can't see where you started and where you stopped. Tie a knot. Now I'm going to switch to yellow. My machines were provided to me by Baby Lock. But Mel's is one of my dealers. Or was one of my dealers. I don't know if they still are. Because they're sewing machine companies prefer they sell their feet. When you go into Mel's, you can tell them I said hi. I had a lot of Janome sewing machines over the years. I've got more painted Janomes than any other model of machine, but I do also have some Bernina sewing machines and Pfaff and Viking Husqvarnas because Creative Feet fit all sewing machines. And I have 2 ends coming off this spool. I have no one to blame but me for that. Oh no. How did I do that? I don't know when I did that. Could be a disaster. We'll see. I was too happy with my happy scissors. This long piece of thread, I know that drives you guys crazy. Look at all that thread she's going to waste. So what color is this thread? This is 3276, I believe. Let's see. Yeah, 3276 in the Polyfast. And it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's sunflower gold. It's the perfect color for a sunflower. I only got a few more minutes. Maybe I can get a bee in before I end for the day. And this is the posture, elbows down, shoulders relaxed, bringing the corner of the frame beneath and the frame on top. They come together. However you want to hold it, you're just keeping those two frames together in the corner. And that angle of the octagon locks the quilt in place, and it stops it from puckering. And that's why I didn't use anything to baste the quilt top to the batting. And this will end up being a placemat in case you're joining us late. And here we go. Where's my glasses? There we go. Now you're going to be able to see. I should really save that for something, shouldn't I? It's like so pretty. Okay. I need to think, which way do I draw best? Because if I draw the wrong way, I won't be able to draw my petals as well as I can. Bring the bottom thread up. Lower the foot, despite not having one on the machine. You don't have to remove the foot. You're welcome to use it or not use it. Entirely up to you. I'm looking for my tweezers. What did I do with them? Oh. World's best tweezers. There's nothing better than these, man. You cannot get them out of there. That is what you call perfect trueness. They're true on those edges. If you ever used tweezers and you couldn't grab the thread, even though you had the thread in between them, you know what I'm talking about. Put your one finger down on the needle thread. It really doesn't matter what your bobbin thread's doing. It really doesn't. So now I'm going to do a petal, and I'm going to grab 2 small circles for each little petal. Come up and come down. And it's really up to you how close your stitches are together. You should choose that before you begin. And when you speak out loud to yourself, you can grab these threads, by the way, and bring them through to the back and not have a knot at all. And now I'm going to take my thread tension down to 3.0 from 4.0, which is a good idea when you're doing free motion. Okay, come up, between, and come down. And two circles is what I'm bringing the top of the point up to the center of 2 circles. As long as you made all your circles the same size, each one of these petals will be the same size, and you can spin the hoop around or you can spin your quilt around. It's entirely up to you. Elbows down, shoulders relaxed. Grab 2 circles. Elbows down, shoulders relaxed. After a while, you'll get better at it if you keep trying, but you gotta get it out of the package. I think part of the problem is that we have a history, right? If you have a history of something going wrong, you're less likely to try it. I need to bring this flower over these circles now, I think, to kind of make it show up better. Didn't have to, it's really a choice. I'm now outlining that last row of circles with yellow. Slide in the hoops as I progress. Nothing has to be undone because nothing is actually connected to anything. We are only getting everything to move by bringing the corner of the bottom and the top frames together. And then it all becomes trapped. So nothing is connected until we bring those corners together, and then everything is connected, but not really. Now I'm going to come back and go up just to add a little something something and up. But I really should have a plan to make it have a petal shape. It's really just doodling, so if you practice your doodling, when you go onto your quilt, your doodles will be better than your paper doodles. Sounds like a problem when I say doodles. Bye, Carlene. We need to plan our next editing session. Here we go. Up. We had people waiting for a couple months for something that came in. Should I do a bee? Or should I do another petal? Because I could come out and I could grab two petals and create a bigger petal. I'm grabbing two petals, come down to this petal. Spin it around, elbows down, shoulders relaxed. Come up in between the two petals and come down. And if you're wondering if I'm thinking about stitch length, I'm not. Before I begin, I tell my brain out loud I would like all my stitches to be the same, and your brain becomes your stitch regulator. Because when there's no foot in your way and you're not pushing down against your sewing machine, there's no resistance and the quilt moves and everything moves easy. Just like you don't have to think constantly while driving a car the speed that you're going. The same thing happens when you do free motion quilting. Okay, a bee. So bees have a flight pattern that they follow. So this bee is leaving the flower. I should really draw a bee. It's been a while. Gotta draw myself a bee, do my rehearsal. So we got our flight pattern, and then we have our bee's body. And then we come back around and we do the stripes. Another stripe. We got a little head on there, and we have some antennae. And then we got our wings. And I may not be doing a very good job. I'm not looking at a bee. I'm just kind of... Oh yeah, I did this on my other ones too, I think. Trying to remember what I did. So we want to practice by not picking up our needle. Sorry, I had to sneeze. Batting fuzz floating in the air. All right, let's see if I can do this without covering up your line of sight. So yeah, elbow down, getting my elbow pad comfy. There we go. Okay, we're at the bottom of the bee. And the bee's got a stinger. We're going to do its body. I'm probably making him longer than I should. We'll do the stripe. And I'm quiet when I'm thinking. if I haven't done something a lot. Okay. And notice I'm going slow. Do eyeball, man. He didn't have eyeballs. This one's gonna have eyes. Oops. Slide in the hoops. Now I can create the bees and antennae. Drawing right back over the line. Would be very difficult without our Octi Hoops to do that. I don't think they have a little circle. So that kind of helps you to know that I made a mistake on the other one. Now we're going to do the wing. And come up. It'll be interesting to see how close this one comes to the bees. It's a big bee. The bees in my world are large. They make lots of honey. Always a good idea to practice drawing your shape before you sew it. The bee has a stinger. And I have not lowered my feed dogs. If I had, it would look a lot like it does right now without lowering the feed dogs. I tend to forget to lower mine because it just simply doesn't, they don't cause a problem with the Octi Hoops, because the Octi Hoops raising the quilt up above the bed of the machine, preventing the feed dogs from interfering. So now I've tied a knot with my little bee. It's a gigantic bee, actually. And you can see. Let me cut it. I know they didn't change the order of my buttons, but it seems like it. All right. I hope that you feel that you benefited from today's video. I plan to actually build a quilt with not the hexes, but the octagon shape, and as I mentioned before, and when I get that figured out, I will show you, and hope that you guys will join along with me. And I plan on in each hexagon to do some type of design, so it isn't just a bunch of octagons laying there, but probably a good summertime project for us to do together. Not a big giant quilt, maybe just a table runner, so that we're not overly stressed out during our summer. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and hit the like button when you leave the live. If you are already seeing me not live, because this is May 26th of 2022, then you're going to be able to leave a message in the comments, and I love hearing your comments and would love to hear what you think about today's lesson. This is our weekly show, Fabrically Speaking Live, which airs every Thursday at 2 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We also have my free online school, Create with Clare Rowley. Inside of there is the VIP group, which is a paid group, and we're going live this Tuesday, you guys. Those of you who are VIPs, don't forget to RSVP. Don't forget to show up. And I'm going to be finishing off, I think I have it here. I can't remember what I have something, and I think somebody asked for something specific. You'll have to be in the VIPs to know. If you did like this video, be sure after we're done being live that you hit the like button. It helps us tremendously for YouTube to know that you guys are having a good time in here. Thanks for all your participation in the chat as well. If you've yet to subscribe to my YouTube channel, I sure hope you'll do so today. And with that, do any of you have any other questions before I say goodbye? It does take about 30 seconds for me to hear you. Let's see. I hope that you guys find joy in your day, the rest of your day and your evening, that you don't lose hope, that the world will right itself again, and that you feel, as I do, that sewing and quilting is a peaceful respite from things we don't necessarily want to think about. And I hope that I have brought a little joy into your day. Thank you, because, you have brought joy into my day. I love you guys so much. Thank you for watching. Bye.